In this lesson, you're going to learn everything about color correcting and color grading in Premiere Pro. Color correcting can dramatically improve the look of your video and make your video look like a big budget movie. So let's start learning how to color correct in Premiere Pro, and I'm also gonna show you how to make any footage look like a movie with color grading. You have to understand that color correcting and color grading is a creative process, so there is no right or wrong way how to do it. I'm gonna show you my workflow of working with color, and then you will be able to copy my workflow or come up with your way of color correcting and color grading. First, let's understand the basic terminology of color correction. There is hue, saturation, and luma. Hue is the name we call colors, saturation is the vividness or intensity of the hue, and luma is the brightness of hue. Alright, to start color correcting, you need to go to Color tab on top of Premiere Pro. Just click here on this Color tab, and the layout of Premiere Pro will change so that it's easier for you to work with your videos. On the right side, you can see Lumetric Color panel. This is where we will make all the adjustments. Under Lumetric Color, you can see different tabs: Basic Correction, Creative, Curves, Color Wheels and Match, HSL Secondary, and Vignette. Let's start from the top, Basic Correction. To enable basic correction, make sure you select the clip that you want to color correct. In my case, this is the clip. Just two guys sitting and looking at the laptop. First thing you can do in the basic correction tab is you can change the white balance. You can make your video cooler, warmer, or you can change the tint of your video. For example, if you shot a video and then you notice that the white balance is off, for example, it's too warm, you can make it normal again just by dragging the slider. Also, Premiere Pro can fix the white balance automatically for you. So, for example, you shot a video and then you notice that it's too cool. Premiere can help you fix that. Just click on the selector tool, and then you have to find something that you know is white for sure. For example, I know that the door frame is white, so I just have to click here. And Premiere will fix the white balance automatically for you. Alright, the next thing you can do in Basic Correction tab is you can change the exposure of the video. So if you drag the slider to the right, you will make the whole video brighter. If you drag it to the left, you will make the whole video darker. If you want to reset the parameter here, you can just type 0, you can drag it back to 0, or you can just double click anywhere on the line and it will reset automatically. You can also increase or decrease the contrast of your video. Let me just make the window a little bit bigger. So here's the increased contrast and here's the decreased. You can also play around with highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Basically, highlights are the bright parts of your image, shadows are the dark parts of your image, whites are the brightest parts, and blacks are the darkest parts, like this wall right here. So if I adjust highlights, you can see that, for example, the table, the laptop, brightness is changing. Then the shadows, everything that's dark changes. If I adjust whites, the window mainly will be affected. And if I adjust blacks, the darkest parts of the image will be affected, like the wall, their pants right here. So have a look. See how the wall becomes black. And one more very useful thing you can do here is you can increase or decrease your saturation. So you can make your video black and white, or you can make it very vivid. I'm gonna adjust the saturation so that their skin looks natural. So here's the original skin tone, and I'm gonna make it just a little bit more saturated. Like that, so 140. And also what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna decrease the shadows just a bit, because right now the video is a little bit flat, in my opinion. So I'm gonna decrease it to -30, and I'm gonna decrease whites, so that nothing is overexposed. And here's the before and after our adjustments. Let's move on to the next tab, Creative. You can scroll through different color presets here and choose the one you like and apply it to your video if you feel lazy to color correct yourself. You can also change the intensity of the color preset, make it stronger, or decrease its intensity. You can also use your own color preset, or another name for color preset is LUT, which stands for lookup table. So if you click this arrow here, then go to Browse, then find the lookup table that you found on the internet or made yourself. You can select it, click Open, and it's gonna be applied to your video. But we are not going to use any color presets for this video, so I'm just gonna select None. You can add faded film effect to your video to create this vintage look. So what it does, it basically washes out the shadows of the video. So here's the before and after. Some people like this look, some people don't. I prefer to keep my shadows clean, so I almost never use faded film effect. You can also sharpen your video, but be very careful with sharpening, because it can make your video look very unnatural. So here's before, after, before, after. I almost never use sharpening because I prefer the natural look of my videos. You can make your video more or less vibrant. And again, you can increase or decrease your saturation. We also have two color wheels here. The first color wheel is responsible for shadow tint. So if I just drag it down to the green color, my shadows will become greenish. And for example, if I drag highlight tint to orange, my highlights will become orange. So you can create quite interesting looks if you feel that it's your style. Again, to reset the color wheels, you just have to double click on them. Let's move on to the next tab. Let's close Creative and open Curves. This is a very useful, important and very powerful tab. It may look complicated, but it's actually not. Let's start with RGB curves, which are responsible for Luma channel, which control brightness, red channel, green channel and blue channel. First I'm gonna select Luma channel and create 3 points on the line. The very bottom point is going to be responsible for shadows. So if I drag it down, you will see that the shadows become darker. If I lift it up, you will see that the shadows become brighter. The middle point is responsible for midtones. So everything that's between highlights and shadows. And the very top point is responsible for highlights. So if I lift it up, you will see that the highlights become brighter. You can create as many points on the line as you need. So for example, I can create 1 point and play around with it. I can move it to the shadow area so that the shadows are affected more, or I can move it to the highlight area so that the highlights are affected more. Let's go to the red channel and understand how it works. Again, I'm gonna create 3 points here, in the middle, on the bottom, and on the top. The bottom point is going to affect shadows. So if I drag it down, our shadows become greenish. If I lift it up, our shadows become red. If I lift up the top point, our highlights will become red. If I drag it down, the highlights will become green. Same with midtones. Let's reset the curve by double-clicking on it. So let's go to the green and blue channels and play around with the curve to create an interesting look. I'm gonna create 2 points here, in the shadow area and in the highlights area. Then I'm gonna drag down the point in the shadow area and lift up the point in the highlights area. So this is the before, after, before, after. Let's go to the blue channel and create a point in the midtones area. Then I can lift the point up to make the video cooler or drag it down to make it a bit warmer. I'm gonna drag it down and leave it just like that. So just like that, you can create this interesting look with RGB curves. So let's have a look at the result. So here's the before and after. Before, after. Let's reset the RGB curves by double-clicking, and then we will move on. Here we have hue versus saturation curve. Basically, what you can do here is you can increase or decrease the saturation of a certain color. For example, I want to increase the saturation of the guy's blue jacket. So what I need to do is I need to create 3 points so that the middle point matches the color of the guy's jacket. Now if I lift the middle point up, you will see that the jacket becomes way more saturated. So here's before, after, before, after. Or I can decrease it completely. Before, after. Now let's suppose that we want to increase the saturation of their faces. Their faces have red color, so let me just find red color here. Create 3 points, 1, 2, and the third point, the middle point, should be on color red. And then I can lift it up to increase the saturation of their faces. Or I can reduce it. Premiere has an option to select the exact color that you need. So let me reset the curve by double-clicking. So now I just have to choose the selector tool right here and then click anywhere on the guy's jacket. And Premiere will automatically create 3 points that I can adjust. Let me reset that and let's move on to the next curve. Here you can see hue versus hue curve, which is one of my favorite tools when it comes to color grading, because I can change any color to any color. Just like before, I'm gonna create 3 points to change the blue jacket's color. Now as I move the middle point, the color of the jacket will change. Let's make it green. So here's the before and after. Before, after. Let's move on to the next curve, hue versus luma. With this curve, you can make any color brighter or darker. So let me just choose the selector tool. Then I'm gonna click on the guy's skin. And I can make the skin brighter or darker. I can do the same with the jacket. Just choose the selector tool again, click on the jacket, and I can make it dark or bright. Let me reset everything, and let's move on to luma versus saturation curve. With luma versus saturation curve, you can basically increase or decrease the saturation of the shadows or the highlights on your video. So for example, if I go to RGB curve, select blue channel and lift the shadows up so that the shadows become blue, like that. And then go back to luma versus saturation curve. I can create 2 points here, like that, and drag the left point down to reduce the saturation of the shadows. So basically the left side of luma versus saturation curve is responsible for shadows, and the right side is responsible for highlights. So the higher the line goes, the more saturated the highlights will be, or the less saturated the highlights will be. Same applies to shadows. So if I lift this point up, you will see that the shadows become more and more blue. Let me reset that, then go back and reset the RGB curve. And let's move on to the last curve here, saturation versus saturation. Personally, I never use this curve, but you may find it useful, so let me explain you how it works. First, I need to go to Basic Correction tab again and increase the saturation of the video to, for example, 300 and make the video like really saturated. Then go back to curves, find saturation versus saturation curve, and let's see what we can do here. So the left side of the curve is responsible for the parts of the video that are least saturated, and the right part of the curve is responsible for the parts of the video that are most saturated. So if I create 2 points here, drag this point down, and drag the right point up, you will see that only the most saturated parts remained saturated. Everything else became desaturated. Like I said before, I never use this curve because I just don't find it useful, but anyway, now you know how to work with it. So let's reset everything we've just done. Just double click here, then go to Basic Correction tab again, and set our saturation back to 140. And let's move on to the next tab, Color Wheels and Match. In this tab, you can add color to shadows, midtones, and highlights of your video. So for example, I can make my shadows a little bit cooler and make the highlights a little bit warmer. So here's before, after. What you can also do is you can decrease or increase the brightness of your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights. Let's reset everything by double clicking. And let's move on to HSL secondary tab, where we're going to create the famous teal and orange look, which is often used in big budget movies. So I'm gonna choose the selector tool right here and click on the actor's face. Then I need to tick this box right here to see our selection. To improve the selection, I'm gonna choose the second selector tool with a little plus icon and improve our selection by adding some more skin tones. After we successfully selected the skin tones, we need to denoise our selection and add some blur. Then let's invert the mask and untick this box here. We isolated the skin tones, and any changes we're going to make now are not going to affect the skin. Let's click on this 3-wheel icon here, so that we have control over shadows, midtones, and highlights. I usually don't make any changes to highlights or shadows because I don't like when shadows or highlights have any color. So we're gonna add the teal color to the midtones only. Let's just drag it towards the teal color. And now you can see that we've just created the teal and orange look. So here's the before and after. Before, after. You can also change the temperature of everything apart from the skin tones. Change the tint, add or reduce contrast, sharpen, and add or reduce saturation. The last tab we have in Lumetri color panel is vignette. You can add some vignetting to the corners of your video. I usually never use vignetting because I don't think it looks professional. We've created this awesome look, and now I'm gonna teach you how to apply the same color grade to a different clip so that you don't have to do everything manually again. So all you have to do is select the clip that you just graded, Then go to Effect Controls, select Lumetri Color, and press Ctrl C on your keyboard. Then select the clip that you want to grade and press Ctrl V to paste the color grade. So now we have a consistent look across both clips. And now I'm gonna show you how to make your life 10 times easier when it comes to color grading. Just go to your Project tab, click New Item, select Adjustment Layer, click OK, and drag the adjustment layer above your clips and make it longer. Basically, any changes that I'm going to make now to the adjustment layer are going to affect the clips that are underneath the adjustment layer. So I'm gonna select it and then, for example, reduce its exposure. And you can see as I change the exposure to the adjustment layer, the video becomes darker. Also, this video became darker as well, because it is located underneath the adjustment layer as well. So this is a very easy and fast way to color grade all of your videos. Again, any changes we make are going to affect the clips that are underneath. If I change the temperature, both clips are going to be affected. If I increase the saturation, both clips are going to be affected as well. Let's add 2 more clips to our timeline and apply the teal and orange look to them. So these are the new clips that we've just added. And let's make them teal and orange. I'm just gonna drag the adjustment layer above the new clips, make it longer. Then I'm gonna select the teal and orange look from one of the clips. So select the clip, go to Effect Controls, select Lumetri Color, press Ctrl C on your keyboard, then select the adjustment layer above the new clips and press Ctrl V on your keyboard to paste the teal and orange look. Boom, just like that, in a couple of seconds we can copy a color grade. Now I can make minor changes to the individual clips. So if I select the first clip, I can, for example, increase its highlights, increase shadows just a bit, and reduce saturation. Then I can do the same to the second clip. I just need to select the clip, increase highlights, maybe reduce the shadows here just a bit, and reduce saturation. Let's play them back. So here's the before and after. Before, after. So as you can tell, an adjustment layer is a very important and useful thing, because you can color correct all your videos at once. Now you know everything about color correcting and color grading in Premiere Pro. So go and apply the knowledge and techniques that I've just shown you to your videos, and I'll see you later.